Hello everyone, hey Brandon, nice to see you.
Hey Fred, how's it going?
It's going really good. So today we have announced and released the Tempest Rising official website, and I thought it would be a fun little idea to go through it together and, kind of explore a little bit what you can get out of the website.
That sounds great. We've put so much work into this thing over the past couple of months, and I think we're all rightly very proud of what we've come up with for everybody.
Absolutely. Let's actually start here on the front page. So we kind of designed the page to be a bit similar to an in-world codex encyclopedia, so you can read a lot about the game. But as it is with the game, if we start clicking on game, you can pick your factions. And Brandon, which are the three factions we're seeing here? I think we know some of them, and there's one we quite don't know about yet.
All right, so yeah, we've got the Tempest Dynasty over there on the left. You can see their little lightning bolt logo spinning around. And then in the middle, we've got the Global Defense Force. And to the right, it's a little bit of a teaser for the third faction. You can see a logo and a little hint of what they look like behind that scan line effect. So
yeah, this will unlock at a later point. At some point, we will declassify this, but right now it's not the timing. But yeah, on this first page you can read about the game. We won't go through all the details. Many of you already know the game, but you can read a few more details about the game. You can check out the latest trailers. The music panel here opens up a full music playlist, so you can check out all of the tracks that we have released in public so far, and of course all of our screenshots. But let's start by diving into the first faction, the Tempest Dynasty here.
This is going to be exciting for people because we haven't released a lot of info about the Dynasty yet, and this is going to be a much better look at who they are and what they do. We're releasing the full rosters for both of our first two factions, and it's really exciting to be able to show everyone everything for the first time.
Yeah, so Brandon, why don't we start by just talking very, very briefly about what distribution mode, upgrades, and plans are.
Absolutely. So first off, what we're doing is we're trying to highlight some of the unique things about our factions. Our factions are very asymmetrically designed, and we're trying to call some of that stuff out in this first section. So with the Dynasty, these are three things we think are very special about them, and we wanted to call those things out right away. So distribution mode is something that the Dynasty can do with their power plants. The Dynasty is very focused around power as a resource and spending it on things or committing it to things that the other factions don't have access to. And one of the big ways that they do that is distribution mode. So what they do is they can swap their power plants from producing power to what we're saying is distributing it. And what that does is it speeds up the attack speed and production speed of nearby factories and buildings and turrets. But what it does is it also damages the affected building over time. So it gives you a boost to your defense, it gives you a boost to your production, but you've got to balance that out against your building being hurt. Now, it won't kill the building. When the building gets to low health, it stops being affected by distribution mode, so you can't accidentally destroy your whole base this way. But we feel like it provides the player a lot of different choices with how they're going to handle their production and how they can utilize their turrets and their power plants as a part of a larger defensive strategy. Anyway, moving on to the next thing. So one very important thing about the Dynasty is they upgrade a lot of their structures. Their construction yard can be upgraded to a second tier. All of their, well, not all of their factories. That's actually not true. Their barracks and machine shop can be upgraded to tier 2, as well as their radar station and their power plant. And when they upgrade the structure to tier 2, it actually, in addition to being able to produce higher tier units for the factories, it also unlocks new abilities. For instance, the machine shop actually gets a missile turret when you upgrade it. So it's able to produce higher tier tanks, and also it gains access to this defensive emplacement that you can use to help defend your base. And lastly, we talk about the Dynasty plans. Basically what this does is your construction yards, each of them has up to 3 plans that it can run. There's the Marshall plan, which boosts your unit's combat potential, the security plan, which affects mostly defenses, and then your logistics plan, which helps out your economy. And the cool thing about this is, while you can only be running one copy of each of those plans, so if one of your construction yards is running the Marshall plan, the second construction yard can't also run that plan. But you can run all three at once if you've got 3 construction yards and the power to spare. So earlier in the game, you can swap out based on what your need is. If you're defending your base, you might want to switch to the security plan. If you're going to go harass your opponent, you might turn on the Marshall plan. But this gives the Dynasty a lot of potential to kind of shift their entire focus in a different direction. And we think that's a really cool thing that the Dynasty can play around with in the game, specifically as the game goes on and gets toward the mid-game, when you have more power to commit to these plans, and eventually more construction yards so that you can run more than one of them at once.
Absolutely. And, specialists we already talked a little bit about. We actually introduced you guys to a few of these on social media. For the first time here, we're showing you pretty much every specialist in the game. But as you know, specialists are special characters you unlock throughout the campaign. They each have their own little storyline. You can only have a specific number of them built in a mission at a time. And some missions are also specialist dependent. So you might have a mission where if your specialist dies, then the mission is failed. But in here you can read about the different specialists. You can check out all of their different abilities. Each of them has a lot of different cool things they can do, and you can read about those, check out little videos of how they work in here as well. We have also yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say one thing that we think is really cool is that we're not just showing you these pictures of these things. We actually have live gameplay footage of pretty much every unit ability in the game, so you can actually see these things in action instead of just hearing about how they theoretically work.
Absolutely.
But yeah, let's move on to this.
We already talked about. We have a few more that we have announced here. Again, you guys can go in and check out what the support powers do and how to use them here. But I think the meat of the new website is our codex here, which covers for both Dynasty and GDF the entire faction. You can read about every single unit infantry in the game. You can check out how every ability works. You can see little videos of all of them. All the vehicles are in here, including some that we are, I guess, revealing for the first time here, including the Temposphere. We have something like the salvage van. We're also showing off the Voltaic tank. All of the aircraft, which we only briefly covered so far. You can check these out, check out their abilities. And of course, Brandon, you'll make some more awesome videos down the line where we can talk about these in details and show off a bit more of the gameplay behind many of these different elements. But yes, this is the codex essentially. We have not included at the moment statistics on all of our units in the game. You can read about those inside the game, but the reason we haven't included those in our codex here is that we are constantly tweaking and balancing these values. So putting in all of the statistics of everything in the codex at this moment would kind of be a waste of time, as we would have to constantly update and change them all the time. But when we're getting closer to launch, we will add a few more things in here so you guys can read about how much damage does my SAM site do to air vehicles and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So we view this as a living document, as a work in progress. And as we go, we can update this and make it more full of information for everybody. But just like you said, Fred, if we started out putting in a bunch of stats, by the time you saw it the first time, it'd probably be already out of date. So
absolutely,
we think this is a great starting point to show off some things that people have been asking about, like support powers, vehicles, aircrafts, especially. We did a couple of videos where we showed off some air units, but this gives a much more personal look at our whole lineup. And
we have a lot of aircraft in this game, by the way. There are a lot of different types of aircraft, also for the third faction that we haven't shown yet. And I think almost every unit in our game has an ability. And again, we for Tempest Rising, we jam-packed the game with a lot of the things that we had on our wish list for what we would consider the perfect RTS in our minds. But we might change and balance some of these things out as we get closer to release. So right now you can read about everything we have in the game and what our thoughts are behind these different abilities and different units. But when we start doing larger scale testing and balancing, we might balance a few of them, and a few things might change, but this is currently the full plan. But Brandon, why don't we go in and also talk a bit about the GDF side of things? We have Intel, Comms, and Network, and we already covered Intel quite extensively in both in, you can check it out in the first mission for GDF, but also we've covered it in a few videos. But why don't you go through Intel, Comms, and Network and what these things mean for the Global Defense Force?
Absolutely. So I'll just cover Intel very briefly. How that works is the GDF collects intelligence on what their enemies are doing in battle. So they have units called marking units, or more specifically, I guess they've got marking weapons on some of their units. And when they take out a marked enemy, they gain intel from the structure or unit or whatever it is that was marked that they destroyed. And they spend that intel on many of their active abilities, like some support powers, most of their units' abilities, and also to train or call in higher tier units or structures. So what we're intending with intel is that you're making hard choices about, how you're spending your resources, how you're committing this precious resource to enact your plans. Also, that's going on to comms. So the GDF, they are very mobile. They're very focused on controlling the battlefield, and a big part of that is their communications network. Comms is an area buff that some units like the comms rig, and you'll see the comms officer, the drone control unit, can produce that increases the move speed and attack speed of GDF units. So they want to be able to get out and deploy this buff in various places to get the most out of their combat encounters. So a decent portion of GDF combat can come down at times to producing comms at the right time and protecting their sources of comms from disruption. Moving on to the last special characteristic of GDF that we highlight here, networked. So when units are marked, networked units gain bonus range and damage against them. And as you can imagine, units like our Hunter tank, their performance increases dramatically when they're in the presence of comms and when they're attacking a networked unit. So the GDF have this kind of chain that they can build that really changes how they perform in combat and really improves it. And it's something that the GDF player and their opponent are going to be able to keep in mind. Getting marked units out of the way of network units, or taking out the sources of comms, where the GDF is trying to build this kind of like perfect storm of effects that they can use to close out combat situations. So we think this really makes them a unique fighting force, especially for when you consider the... Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, besides the three main characteristics of the faction and the specialists, there are some specialists we also haven't shown yet, and we'll do more in-depth walkthroughs of them. But again, just like with the Dynasty, you can go in and check out how do the different specialists work in the game. You guys have already checked out, for instance, the Riot Medic in the first GDF mission. Support powers, just as with the Dynasty, and our tech trees down here. But a few interesting things in the tech tree as well. We actually also have upgrade pods. Can you talk a bit about how they work and what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So where the Dynasty are upgrading individual buildings to make each of those structures better, the GDF is much more centralized. They have two tech structures. They have the satellite uplink and the data core. And what they do is, once they build them, they can upgrade them with two different pods. And they can put both pods on either tech building, but they have to make the time choice, basically, of which one's the most important. Do I build this one now? Do I build that one first? The other thing is they have to protect these tech structures, because if they lose one of them, it's effectively like losing 3 buildings at once. And then, you know, if you lose your satellite uplink and you have to produce it again and then produce its pods again to be able to take advantage of those upgrades. So it's a lot more centralized than the Dynasty, which has some good things and some bad things about it. But we think that this gives each faction a really unique characteristic when you're considering how you're building your bases, and how you're approaching your progression in the game.
Absolutely. And in here, of course, just as with the Dynasty, you can check out the tech tree of the game. Again, the tech tree might change, but right now it's pretty locked down. But in here you can also see when do you unlock the different support powers in the game. You can read about what everything does, and you can of course always click on something and then you get the full in-depth description. A lot of stuff to go through here, and a lot of different types of structures, vehicles, and aircraft and infantry. But we really hope you guys like this. There's a lot to dive into, and we're essentially opening the floodgates on everything Dynasty and everything Global Defense Force. And later on, of course, our third faction, which is going to be very interesting. On the website, you can also read about the news of the game, you know, all the latest news. They're also on the front page. And last but not least, you can join our community, which we hope all of you already have done. And if you haven't, please go in and do so. The community consists of course, Twitter, Reddit, our Discord server, and of course on our Steam community. And last but not least, if you haven't already, wish lists the game, please go in and do so. Follow it on Steam and make sure that you have everything checked, so you get the latest updates every time we send out new awesome little videos or screenshots or new information about the game in general. But yes, that I think that's pretty much it, Brandon. Do you have anything else on the website that you think is interesting to point out?
Oh, I could keep going. I did want to point out one thing. You know, there are some people in the community that are really concerned about the density of our abilities. That people might be worried how many abilities exist in the game. What we tried to do is call out in the unit whether it's an active ability, a passive ability, or what we're calling contextual, which is like when an engineer right clicks on a vehicle to go repair the vehicle, or right clicks on an enemy building to go capture it. That you're still performing an action. It's just you're not pressing an extra button to make it happen. So, but that being said, also this is very close to final. We might tweak some things here and there, but you know, pending testing and feedback. You know, these things are still, you know, we're still trying to get it perfect for you and for us. So,
absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and yeah, back to 3D Realms Live, and I hope that you're going to enjoy the website. If you have any questions about anything, you know where to catch us on our Discord channel. Brandon is there, I'm there, a bunch of developers are there to answer any questions that we can, at least. But thank you so much for joining, and thanks, Brandon, for joining to walk us through a bit of the website.